I call the meeting, the Smart Sport Council meeting at 6 p.m. exactly. Please stand and we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice for all.
All right. We have a full house tonight. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Here. Here.
Here.
Here. Here.
All right. Well, we have something really important. The first thing, we are going to do the oath of office to our brand new council member. Mr. Clergett, would you join me up at the dais? Ready? Okay, you raise your right hand and repeat after me. I
Okay,
state your name.
Pat Clergett,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution
to support the Constitution
and the laws
and the laws
of the United
of
States
the United States
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Washington
and all local ordinances,
and all ordinances,
that I will, to the best of my ability,
that I will, to the best of my ability,
diligently and impartially
diligently and impartially
perform the duties of the office of council member
perform the duties of the office of council member
for the city of Sumner
for the city of Sumner
in and for Pierce County, Washington,
in and for Pierce County, Washington,
as such duties are prescribed by law. So
Yes.
help me God.
as such duties are prescribed by law.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Oh my God, I've got it. Thank you.
All right. First thing on the agenda is consent agenda. Will the clerk please read the consent agenda?
Item number 1, resolution number 1670, Metro Animal Services donation acceptance. Item number 2, approval of the minutes from the February 20th. Regular council meeting on the 25th of February 2024 study session.
Deputy Mayor Cole, would you please make a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
Yes, I move to adopt the consent agenda of today, March 4th, 2024.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
By Councilmember Stewart. Been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Would any council member wish to remove an item? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimous. All right. Okay, we move on to public hearing, and we have no public hearing tonight. And we have no regular business tonight. So now we move on to public comment. We have quite a list. Michelle, would you please read the rules for public comment?
I please direct the mayor and the council applicant regarding items that are not on the agenda. The mayor calls your name, please approach the podium And if you're participating via Zoom, use the raise your hand or telephonically press *9. Before you begin your remarks, please state your name and address or city in which you reside for the record. You have 3 minutes to speak.
Thank you.
For a reminder, public comment is a time for the council to hear from you and is not the time to engage in a back and forth dialogue. If you raise specific questions, the mayor may direct you to the appropriate staff member for further discussion.
Okay, first one on the list is Janice Breen. Come on up to the dais or to the podium there and.
The white button.
My name is Janice Yoder Breen. I was born and raised in Sumner. I'm here to support the Ryan House. I live in Redmond now, but we do own 2 houses in Sumner. I took piano lessons for over 10 years from Dorothy Ryan Peterkin, who lived at the time on their farm just across from the old cannery, across the train tracks. And I'm still in close contact with her 2 daughters, Carol, who lives in Holland, Michigan, and Anne, who lives in Bend, Oregon. And they both wanted me to confirm that they really do not want to see their grandmother's house knocked down. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Brent Norlin.
Thank you, City Council, for letting me talk tonight. My name is Brent Norland. I am 9 years old, and I live on Alder Avenue. I am a 3rd grader at Maple Elementary School. I came here tonight instead of hockey practice to make sure the council knows I really care about the Ryan House in this city. We should keep our history alive in Sumner. There's not very many towns that have historical property on them, so we shouldn't tear it down. Where else can you go to see the very beginning of this town? It's an iconic place and it's my favorite building on Halloween when I go trick-or-treating. You can't ruin that for kids. I recently went to New Orleans and I got to see buildings that were 200 to 300 years old. It was cool and people came from all over the world to see them. For the people that live here, it's really special because most towns don't have that kind of history. Why would we want to tear our history down? Thank you for letting me speak. I really hope we can save the Ryan House. And one more thing, since I'm here, it would be so cool because I play hockey if we also had an ice rink in town. But if I could only choose one, I'd still choose the Ryan House. Thank you.
Nice work, young man. Next one up, Casey Henderson.
Name's Casey Henderson, 162nd Ave East, reading for Randall Adams, 63rd Street Court East. In the city's Ryan House brief, comments included say the city's decision-making process with respect to the demolition and future conversion into a public park, and the demolition for the purpose of creating the Lucy V. Ryan Public Park qualifies as a planned action under the city's planned action ordinance. And lastly, the city ultimately made its decision to demolish the Ryan House to transform it into Lucy V. Ryan Park. With these statements, the city acknowledges that it is now creating a park and that the property has never been a public park previously as required by the deed. Also stated is while the city's proposal necessarily requires demolition, the historical significance of the Ryan House will continue to be preserved and improved. So how is demolishing the Ryan House and a significant piece of our history an improvement for the citizens of Sumner? Elsewhere in the brief, the city states, instead, the city maintained and used the Ryan House structure for nearly 100 years, first as a library, then as a museum, eventually allowing the Sumner Historical Society, SHS, a volunteer organization not associated financially or otherwise with the city, to utilize the structure in exchange for the Historical Society opening up the structure to public to view its artifacts associated with Sumner's important history, ID AR 19. By 2018, however, the Ryan House was predominantly used by the SHS for storage and was very rarely open to the public, with most city residents and visitors assuming that the Ryan House was a private residence. You were the owner. If that was the presumption, it is your fault. If there's something you did not like, or if you wanted to make sure people knew it was a museum, that is on you. Also, in your historic and cultural resources element that is part of your comprehensive plan update, at 1.3, you state, work with the Sumner Historical Society and other community groups to promote historic and cultural education and recognition. And at 1.3.1, continue to support the Sumner Historical Society. 1.3.3, partner with the Sumner Historical Society and others to provide access to historic documents such as maps, photos, and newspapers to landowners, citizens, and others. At 1.3.4, improve the Ryan House and public access to the Ryan House Museum and consider other compatible public uses, such as converting it to a visitor center. How can you state SHS is not associated financially or otherwise with the city when they have been, and in some places are still included in your very own comprehensive plan? Now, in another place in the updated comprehensive plan, you cross off all references to SHS as you try to clean up your previous erroneous actions, yet you cannot honestly say there has not been an association with the SHS. Shame on you for misrepresenting that to a judge in the court of law.
Thank you. Next one up, Amanda Henderson.
And we'll see when you start talking. Okay.
Sorry, I was only supposed to finish what he couldn't squeeze in 3 minutes, but he did did a good job. I'm Amanda Henderson. I live at 5908 and 5912, 162nd Avenue East. Okay. A lot of people ask me, why have you been going to city council meetings and study sessions and stuff so much the last year and a half or year, excuse me. And the short answer is, we don't trust you. We've lost our trust. And for my own personal reasons, and then the Ryan House was just another cherry on top. After doing some digging with the Ryan House situation and our own personal home situation, we've done a lot of digging, and a lot of the same last names keep coming up in this town. And it's 5 or 6 of the same last names. And it's like, if you have enough money or the right last name, you can get something done. But if not, that's just the way it goes. My husband kind of made a joke one time that Sumner doesn't have a family tree that branches out. It has a wreath, and it just keeps coming back in. And some of us would like to be a part of that. We would like a tree. We would like to feel welcome and feel that we can trust our city. If I trusted you, I could be home with my kids right now, but I can't. I have to come to every city council meeting and every study session to know what's going on in this town. The Ryan House, I've done a lot. I'm on the PTA at Daffodil. I've been there for 11 years. I'm really involved. I've chaperoned a lot of field trips, quite a few to the Ryan House. And maybe some of you don't know that Daffodil in particular, as well as a lot of schools in our district, are Title I school, which is a low-income school. Our school district and our state does not cover field trips, okay? We as a PTA raised that money to cover field trips. Guess what? The Ryan House was the only free field trip we had. It was a guaranteed field trip every year for our kids if we didn't have enough money to cover that. So you're taking away history and you're taking away a field trip experience from all of the 2 schools in town that were walking. It was literally a walking field trip. A couple I only have a few more seconds, sorry, but I'll be honest with you. When you guys present something, you guys as in the city presents, and they say staff recommendation at the end, that is a giant red flag for citizens. You should be asking us what you should be doing, not the staff recommendation. Half that staff doesn't even live in this town. Why do they get to plan our things and do these things if they don't live here? They have no skin in the game. Ask us. Don't staff recommendation, that should just halt you. I know you guys don't get paid enough to do what you're doing, but I hope in the time that you do have out of here, that you are using a little bit of that time to research these things and not just trusting staff recommendation, because that's the last person you should be talking to. And I think you should have to see on here where it says staff or online participants 7, you should see a screen for each one of those persons.
Now you're talking.
All right, Laura Hendricks.
Mayor Hayden, council members, my name is Laura Hendricks. I don't have one of those names within the wreath, but I do have a name. Maybe you've heard of Jimi Hendrix. So I bleed purple and gold like many people here. I was born and raised in downtown Sumner at 918 Ryan Avenue and 913 Wood Avenue. Those addresses might sound familiar to you, but if you go there, there's no houses there. They've been demolished. One by a private property owner, one by the city. My parents moved here in the late 60s and their 5 children attended Daffodil Elementary, Maple Lawn Elementary, Sumner Junior High, yeah, we're that old, and Sumner High School. Other than during the height of the pandemic, I have never missed a daffodil parade in my life. I've flown across the country, driven my convertible Mustang across Snoqualmie Pass in snowstorms just to get home from college so I could go to the parade with my family. You might recognize us because we are that crazy family that parks a tent right in front of the Ryan House. We are happily camped there every single year, or as my sister says, in front of the old library. Every single parade, we're there. We're the first ones there. A good chunk of my family's photos contain the Ryan House as a backdrop. In every photo, you can see every family member's memory of downtown Sumner events. The Ryan House is there. Although she is old, she stands tall and proud behind us, beaming just as brightly as me, my kids, my parents, and all the other grandkids do for the next photo. As a family, we reminisce about how little the kids were when we took their pictures on the porch. We talk about how me and my sister used to ride our bikes to the Ryan House to drink out of the fountain. And we talk about how my little girl lost her second tooth right at the Ryan House right after the Daffodil Parade. And with each family event in front of the Ryan House, we recognize the Ryan House is our family. My husband and I bought our first home on Park Street so we could be in downtown Sumner, the place I love. I want to express my gratitude to you for all of the amazing parks you've created and maintained in the city over the years. Rainier View Park, Heritage Park, and Loyalty Park. As a Sumner homeowner, I appreciate my tax dollars being spent on the maintenance and upgrades of those parks. But I really want to talk about a different park today. I want to talk about the Ryan House and the surrounding parklands. From everybody here, I want to see a show of hands. How many people want to see the Ryan House demolished? Raise them high, raise them really high. All right. All right, how many people here want to see the Ryan House remain? Raise them high, really high. Wow, thank you guys. That's a unanimous vote, right? Pretty much, that's what I've heard from every single neighbor, little kid, high school student that I've met on the street. We want, I have 2 more seconds. The Ryan House should remain standing. Thank you.
All right, Nick Bierman.
I go through this every time it's on, right? Okay. So my name is Nick Bierman. I live on Parker Road East. I'm gonna do the best I can to go through the Ryan House funding opportunities handout that I gave city council right before the meeting started. I'm gonna do the best I can to get through this in about 3 minutes. So the estimated project cost from the WJE assessment was that we would have to spend $2.2 million to fund renovation of the Ryan House. One question I ask is, can the cost be lowered? Can we get a second estimate? We haven't even had a second estimate on that. So that would be something to think about going forward. Can there be a second estimate that would be lower? And then I want to talk about the Washington State Heritage Capital Project grants. They cover soft costs associated with design and scope. When I read through the documents that have been put up by the city, there's been some deductions from the existing grants for the design costs. The Heritage Capital Grant does cover that, so I think there's some discrepancy there. The Heritage Capital Grant can be over two budget cycles, and that makes a phased approach work really well. Also, the Heritage Capital Grant Program reimburses money for the costs that were spent. It doesn't give you an advance on that, so that also makes the phased approach work better. The grant requires 2-to-1 matching from other funds, so that means that for the $2.2 million estimate, a total of $733,000 can come from the Heritage Capital Grant, and then the other $1.5 1.467 million has to come from other sources. For the Heritage Capital Grant, we already had been allocated in the current budget that goes to 2023 to 2024. We were allocated $315,000. That's the figure that I received directly from the Washington State Historical Society. There's been, I see on the website that the city has 304, so there's a discrepancy there that could be resolved as well. But that means that there's an additional $418,000 that's available under Heritage Capital Grants. And yes, they do allow you to apply for a second grant while one grant is currently out in progress. So that is a funding option. Of course, the deadlines are coming up very soon, so we have to be cognizant of the fact that the deadlines are coming up in the next couple of months. But of that 1.467 million that's needed from other sources, the city of Sumner had already procured 1.323 million from other sources like the Pierce County LTAC, the Sumner Lodging Tax, even a small amount from the Port of Tacoma. I know that that money has been given back in most of those cases, but my question is, can the city reapply? What could be allocated from the city of Sumner's lodging tax or other discretionary funds? And with the visibility surrounding the Ryan House, private funding could become more of a factor now too. We could raise a lot more money through private sources. Yeah, thank you.
Marissa Ryan.
I apologize for my phone call. It's new glucose meter.
The red means off, right? On? Okay, okay.
Okay. Sorry.
It's okay.
I'm a hockey puck coming at you.
My name's Marissa Ryan, and
And I'm her Aunt Nancy.
Nancy Ryan Dressel. And I just wanted to kind of quote both the deed and what you guys have on your page. So for starters, in the deed, it says on the first paragraph, which is just one huge long sentence, it says the Lucy V. Ryan deceased being desirous of perpetuating her said home as a memorial to her. So they wanted the house in memory of her. And then there's only one time that it's actually even said, or it's even said park. But it says the said premises being hereby granted, conveyed, and dedicated to the town of Sumner for the use of the public forever. And as a public park and site for a public library to be maintained on said premises. It basically just says that it wants it to be open to the public, to the people of Sumner. And then it goes into the, how you guys should have done maintenance on the trees and the holly, and you didn't do that very well. And then you guys were supposed to do upkeep. I don't think there's been any maintenance done whatsoever. And then, when it says the present building is ready to be torn down, the heirs reserve the right to enter and move any part of the old house that it is desired. There's also reserved the right to go upon the premises at any time for the purpose of assisting in the care of the grounds. That has not been allowed. And then I'm going to go back to your guys' homepage. So under Sumner's history, it literally says Lucy V. Ryan Park. That's not the history. Lucy V., it says the Ryan family donated a plot of land on Main Street. No. To honor their mother as Lucy V. Ryan Park. No, that's also accurate. And then it goes down to join us in celebrations over the years, from the Daffodil Parade to football championships. Meet school children, including Clara McCartley Wilt, who became the first graduate of the University of Washington. Two things there. First of all, it's very cool that she was the actual first graduate. Her parents were some of the founders, but don't promote tourism with advertising school children or ghosts. It's just weird. She died in 1929. And then it says, it should say The Sumner Story by Amy Ryan. And then the book is available but you guys have literally deleted The Sumner Story, literally deleted. So anyways, that's just sloppy. And they divorced in 1904. I don't know if you guys know that. Anyways, but that's my 2 cents. You're doing great. You're doing great. You guys are asking questions and you guys are you're doing really, really great. I just want to let you guys know that. keep asking questions and stop apologizing.
I just want to thank everybody that you all raised your hands that we want to save our house. It's our house. It's Sumner's house. Sumner's legacy.
Yeah, that's it.
Done.
Okay,
Do you want to push it? I can push you.
No, don't push that way.
It's fine. It's fine.
Run. No.
Fred Orton.
I don't know how this works, so do I just?
Should be on. I think it's.
Is it on?
Yes.
My name is Fred Orton and I currently live in Enumclaw. I'm here to express my opposition and disappointment in your decision to destroy the Ryan House. My involvement in Save the Ryan House began by handing out brochures at the homecoming parade. I spoke with dozens of families and I was shocked that no one knew about the demolition which was scheduled to take place in a matter of weeks. Even families with young children said that they didn't need another park and felt the home should be saved. My family represents 5 generations of Sumner citizens and my roots go deep into this Sumner Valley soil. I, like my father and my sisters, are proud graduates of Sumner High School. My great-grandparents, Obie and Amelia Parker, Parker Road, settled in Sumner in the late 1800s. My grandfather and his brother, Ed and Charles Orton, were one of the first farmers to start farming daffodils and were the founders of the Daffodil Festival. My grandfather sold his farm to the Harold Knutson, and his sons, Roger and Tom, are just about the last surviving farmers in the Sumner Valley. If you'd like to see what can happen when concerned citizens wish to preserve a Sumner historical home, just visit our family's home known as Orton Place on Riverside Drive. It, like the Ryan House, is on the Historic National Register. That home was the birthplace of the Daffodil Festival. Like the Ryan family, I have always been proud of the role my family played in Sumner's history and the legacy they left behind. I share my family's history not to brag, but in an attempt to press upon you the necessity to recognize and honor the rich history of Sumner and preserve it for generations to come. My interest in history is inspired by my own family's history and pride in what they accomplished. You were elected to represent and preserve and protect this beautiful town for future generations. The Ryan House is a historic symbol of Sumner, just like the Meeker Mansion is for Puyallup. I'm a retired history teacher and former department chair and taught for 36 years at Puyallup High School. As a teacher, I sought to inspire and foster in my students a love of community, appreciation for local history, and commitment to public service. I beg you to seek input from your citizens of Sumner and seek their help in saving the Ryan House. You must be aware, and I would hope impressed, by the tremendous groundswell of support by so many who have clearly expressed their desire to save the Ryan House. I certainly have been. All we ask for you to do is to hit the pause button and allow the citizens to move forward with alternatives to an immediate demolition. Rather than spending my efforts raising funds for litigation, I'd much prefer spending my time, money, and efforts on renovation. We all make mistakes, and it's time to reach out to our community for support to save the Ryan House. This important project could help unify and bind the community. Destroying this local treasure under your watch
Sir,
will have a profound and lasting impact on Sumner.
sir,
Please be real leaders
excuse me, sir.
and reconsider your decision. Thank you.
Okay. That is all we have signed up on the list. Is there anyone else that would
Excuse
like?
me,
to
I was
speak?
signed up on the list, Melissa Fox.
Melissa Fox. Come on down.
Do I need to push a button?
No, it's not.
Hi, my name is Melissa Fox. My address is 16913 8th Avenue East in Spanaway. I attended the last city council meeting and spoke about the Pioneer Waterfall Monument that was located in Heritage Park on the corner of Main Street, Kincaid Avenue and Cherry Avenue. After my presentation, the mayor referred me to Michael Cosa, for information about the waterfall. I did follow up with him after the meeting. And tonight I want to ensure the official record reflects what I understood. And if any portion of my statement should differ from his recollection, I welcome his input. So my first question was, where is the waterfall currently located? I was told it was dismantled and is in storage. The storage location was not shared. My next question was, what are the plans for the waterfall? I didn't receive a clear answer to this question. I was told that during the removal, some of the waterfall plaques were broken. Furthermore, there weren't any formal plans to replace those or rebuild the waterfall. So my kind of question is, if there are no plans, will the plaques remain in storage permanently? Then I asked if it was erected with donations and was given, yes, probably. I then asked, have any of the donors been contacted about it? And that was not known. So today I walked through the park. I went down to Sumner Woodworking, buy some stuff for my dad. I took pictures to share with my family and friends. Heritage Park as it stands today does not reflect the extensive history of Sumner. Based on the park's plaque, Koblock, Senator Koblock is the only name recognized. So I asked, how can it be named Heritage Park? I'd like to read a portion of the park's history as posted on the official Sumner government website. And it states, Heritage Park was designed and constructed with materials and labor donated by local individuals, families, and businesses. The late senator, who served in the Washington State Legislature for 30 years before retiring in 1977, began the project by contributing to purchase the land and other materials. And then it states that amenities are a gazebo, benches, tables, chess and checkers tables, which I didn't see when I was there today, grassy areas, heritage tiles, and pavers. That's obviously a description of that waterfall. Today, the majority of the park is concrete with only a small area of grass at the south end. Three picnic tables, a few benches on the gazebo remain, but nothing related to Sumner's true heritage. When the founding family's waterfall was still standing at the park, the plaques contained the names of Woolery, my family. I brought my mom here, she's a Woolery. Kincaid and Ryan, and there were many more families recognized on plaques as well.
Ma'am, your time is up.
Okay, so is there anybody else that would like to speak before I move on? Come on up, give your name. 3 minutes.
I'm Tina Burnett. I live at 228 Sumner Avenue, which I think Councilman Bowman might know. When the founding family's waterfall was still standing in the park, plaques contained the names of Woolery, Kincaid, and Ryan. There were many more families recognized on plaques as well. As such, the waterfall represented the larger heritage of Sumner. Can the council provide a reason for the removal? Was the waterfall no longer functioning? Many questions and concerns about the city council's leadership process. While in Sumner this morning, well, I see it all the time because I live so close to Ryan House. I find it disgraceful the city of Sumner decided an irreplaceable and distinct piece of history should be demolished. Any house requires ongoing maintenance, whether it was built in the 1800s or last year. The city has been irresponsible in its role as custodian of the past. It is Sumner's obligation to protect its unique claim to fame. How? By ensuring unique historical artifacts survive and tell the story of the city. The Ryan House and the old Sumner Cemetery, which was donated by Isaac Woolery, are examples of how Sumner came to be. The waterfall I speak of is an extension of history that recognizes the significant and amazing story of Sumner and the families that began writing that history. In closing, I'm standing with the Friends of Ryan House. I may not be, well, I am a resident of Sumner. I've lived here only 2 years, a little more than 2 years. But when I lived in Tacoma, I frequently came to Sumner to stroll your beautiful downtown, to eat at the Buttered Biscuit, to shop, to look at the Ryan House. I geocached at the Ryan House. Even when I didn't live here, it was an important landmark. So saving Ryan House should be a concern for everybody in the state, not just residents of Sumner. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Anybody else before we move on? Mr. Yoder.
Gary Yoder, 910 Traffic Avenue. I wasn't gonna say anything tonight, but since other people are talking about the waterfall, that's my source subject. Ryan House is part of it too, but Kathy was kind enough today to help me with questions I had on the waterfall, but she was trying to tell me the reason that it was taken out is because it was getting used as a toilet. That the homeless was using it, to go to the bathroom, what have you. My dad was up there. I was honored to see his name. Every time I was in town, I would go over there and make sure it's still there. And he was on the council for 20 years and he was really involved with Sumner. And hate to see it gone because all those names mean something. And they mean something to it was talking about Wooleries and stuff. They were neighbors of mine, it was neat to see. So many of the people that I knew, but I'd like to see it get back. Kathy kind of assured me that someday soon, we're gonna do something to put it back. Because what's there now is just concrete. And you can say it meant nothing to people. Well, the name up there now, Reuben Knobloch, who knows who he is? I do. I knew him, but I mean, you could say all those other names, big deal. Well, it is a big deal to people that's been around here. I've been around 78 years and I still like to think I'm a punk kid, but I'm still, it means something. I go by Ryan House. A good friend of mine is in charge of the big house over at Puyallup. And if the city tried to tear down that house, boy, there would be hell raised. We bought the old farm store down at Sunset Chevrolet. And I told the new owner, I said, you better not tear that down. If you tear it down, you won't sell any more cars to anybody in Washington, Sumner. It's just part of Sumner. You don't tear it down. Thank you.
All right. Anybody online? Seeing none, we will move on to new business. Today we have a planning commissioner appointment. Councilmember Elfers, would you like to make a motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to approve the planning commissioner appointment for Robert Healy.
Robert Healy. We're gonna have Ryan Windish fill us in a little bit about Mr. Healy.
Mayor, did you get a second?
Do we have a second on that?
I'll second.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Mayor, who was that?
Bowman.
Seconded by Councilmember Bowman. All right, Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Hayden, members of the city council. My name is Ryan Windish. I'm the Community and Economic Development Director. And this evening, I'm up here for Rob Healy. He's applied to be on our planning commission, city's planning commission, and seeking confirmation of that. So the Sumner Planning Commission serves in an advisory capacity to the city council. The commission's main purpose is to assist in the implementation of the vision and policies in the Sumner Comprehensive Plan, including making recommendations on various city plans, goals, and policies, the Sumner zoning code, and development regulations. The Planning Commission is comprised of 7 members who are appointed by the mayor and confirmed by the city council. And the members of the Planning Commission are to be selected without respect to political affiliation and shall serve without compensation. Members are appointed for a 4-year term. Rob Healy has applied for position on the Planning Commission. He's here tonight. His experience and background is in environmental and urban planning. Currently works for the Port of Tacoma on a remediation project and other projects. He's been in Sumner since 2011. He's raising his family in Sumner. With his children getting older, he has time to give back to the community and wants to be more involved. Mayor Hayden is seeking confirmation of Mr. Healy to fill the Planning Commission seat. that was vacated by Mr. Vincent Stone King in January. And it would be for the remainder of Mr. Stone King's term, which ends in April 2026. The recommendation is for confirmation of the mayoral appointment of Robert Healy to the Sumner Planning Commission for a term expiring in April 2026.
Thank you. Mr. Healy, would you like to stand up and
Sure.
let us know who you are?
So I'm Rob Healy. I work at the Port of Tacoma. I have worked there for 10 years, been living in town for 12 years. I've been an environmental consultant before then for 16 years. So we moved here because some friends of ours lived here. We stopped for a Halloween day and spent the night at their house and fell in love with the town. And we spent a few years after that trying to figure out how to move here. And I was able to do that with a job transfer. My wife works at the vet clinic. Our kids are both girls. One's a sophomore in high school, one's finishing up middle school. And they don't want to hang out with me anymore, so I have extra time on my hands, so I'm happy to help. So really, thanks for the opportunity, and thank you, Councilman Helfers, for suggesting I apply.
Thank you. Any comments from the public on this appointment? Seeing none. Council. Anybody have any comments on this? No? 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 You have one?
Sure, I'll make a comment. I just want to thank, hey, we always get people involved. I think it's really important for the community to come. So I just want to thank everyone for being here. And I think being a part of a commission is just one of the ways that you can be ahead of the decisions that are coming up. And I think it helps to plan the future of the town, including parks and things like that we talked about tonight. So I just appreciate Mr. Healy for being willing to be part of that, and I encourage other folks to do the same things.
Yes. I too was on planning commission for 2 terms, and it's a learn. You're gonna learn a lot. So thank you for applying. All right. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Potato,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
Bowman,
Yes.
Yes.
Margaret,
Yes.
Alfers,
Yes.
Gold,
Yes.
Passes unanimous. Welcome. All right. We're moving on to resolution number 1676, RV waste receiving station closure. Councilmember Boteto, would you like to make a motion?
I make a motion to adopt resolution number 1676, RV waste receiving station closure.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councilmember Stewart. And I call on Michael Coast. Oh, no, we got Ryan.
Hello.
Ryan Johnstone, Public Works.
Thank you, Mayor Council. Again, for the record, my name is Ryan Johnstone. I'm the Deputy Public Works Director over Operations. And this evening, what I'd like to do is just, so we're all on the same page, I'll quickly read the summary background that's included on your agenda bill. Then we'll review the RV receiving station presentation that you actually saw at last week's study session. So quickly, since its construction in 2015, the RV waste receiving station located at the wastewater treatment facility has seen increased use beyond what was originally intended. In addition, waste being disposed of is of a higher strength and is composed of waste constituents that may inhibit the ability of the wastewater treatment facility to treat it to permitted standards. In order to continue operating, the US EPA and the Washington State Department of Ecology require that the station meet more stringent standards, requiring upgrading of the station, which is estimated to cost approximately $1.5 million to complete. If this station is not brought into compliance, then the other option is to close the station at a cost of approximately $15,000. Staff recommendation is to close the RV waste receiving station by April 30th, 2024. And you will note that as a result of our last conversation that we had, we did shorten that window to closure. We were originally proposing the end of the year. And per comment from at the study session, we shortened that to April 30th, 2024. So moving on to the presentation, again, it is pretty much the same presentation as last week. We'll just quickly go through this. We're gonna go through quick background, review the potential risks to the wastewater treatment facility, talk briefly about cost of compliance, upcoming actions, and then how we're communicating the closure. So the first slide, again, part of the 2015 upgrade, its intended use was to be used by Sumner residents. It was RV waste. It was for day use. Current use, we're seeing it used by RV owners all over the state. It's routinely used by mobile service providers, including carpet cleaners, food trucks, things of that nature. We do see people showing up with portable tanks. And it's unknown what the contents of those tanks are. And the station, as you see in the picture right there, is unmonitored and open for 24-hour access. So it's available at any time of day to anybody who wants to dispose of, frankly, just about anything. Oh, sorry. There we go. Exposure to risk to the wastewater treatment facility includes the risk that comes with high-strength waste and toxic pollutants. We could inhibit the biological process. The simple way of putting that is something could be introduced that kills off the bugs that help us in our treatment process, which could cause a discharge of untreated sewage into the river, and nobody wants to see that. Further, our biosolids disposal method that we currently use, we treat our biosolids to Class A standards and then make it available for citizens to use on their yards and so on. That would not be possible. And so we would have to not give up that type of service. And then, of course, the violation is per the regulations that I mentioned earlier, all of this coming down through the EPA and the State Department of Ecology. So steps to compliance, we can retrofit and permit the facility. We can build a compliant discharge site, and we can make sure that what that entails, excuse me, jumping ahead there, what that entails is either moving it to a place where it could be enclosed, and Department of Ecology recommends that would be on the site of the treatment plant, or it should be enclosed. If it's going to be separate, it should be enclosed on its own. We would need to ensure that we're meeting discharge standards. So the facility would have to be permitted, and then we would have to install adequate treatment, determine what that is, and then install adequate treatment to make sure that what's being discharged is okay for the treatment plant. We'd have to conduct routine sampling and analysis to ensure that continues. And then we'd have to create and implement a usage tracking program. And what this entails is actually when people want to use it, they have to register with the city, they have to get permission to actually dispose, and then they can gain access to the facility. The cost for compliance, we're projecting right now an approximate cost budgetary number of about 1.5 million, an annual operation cost of about $200,000 roughly. I do have some extra information that I can share with you. Actually comes from what we call the Orange Book. It's criteria for sewage works design that comes from the Department of Ecology. And it talks about that projected cost to retrofit. And where we got that number from is that one, storage tank is necessary, flow control systems are necessary, so potentially variable frequency drives and pumps. We'd have to provide wash water sufficient capacity to be able to wash down the site entirely, potential odor control facilities, preliminary screening and grit removal, which is just one way of saying we got to remove the chunks that the treatment plant can't treat before it gets into the plant. We'd have to provide sampling and flow recording, as I mentioned earlier. And then again, that the location would have to be somewhere where it could be secure. So moving on to the next slide. Our upcoming action at this point is to close the station due to the costs that we're anticipating. We believe that projected cost to button up the site and close it would be approximately $15,000. And at this point, that timeline would that we would attempt to meet would be closing it by April 30th of this year. And finally, just communicating that closure again to review, as we discussed last week, we would be changing signage that's currently at the facility to indicate the closing date. Directional signage that's found on State Street, we would be removing. We will notify local RV sellers so that they weren't referring their customers to the dump site. And then we'd be taking advantage of our social media, print newsletter, and e-news to get the word out. Further, we'd go beyond just those and we'd communicate with various RV forums and RV dump site website, their trackers, to make sure that they pull our site off of their website so that people are not going there and then finding the Sumner location and thinking they can dump. And with that is the end of the presentation. Happy to take any questions or.
All right. I understand Councilmember Elpers has an amendment.
Yeah, I did have an amendment, so I'd like to make a motion to amend section 1 on resolution 1676. The authorization section is to read as follows. The city council of the city of Sumner has determined that the RV waste receiving station is not able to provide the service for which it was originally intended without costly upgrades, and hereby directs staff to close the RV waste receiving station and then eliminate permanently on April 30th, 2024. Communicate said closure to the public and further direct staff to explore options to operate the receiving station on a controlled and limited basis.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Mr. Brown. Okay, Mr. Alpers, would you like to speak to your amendment?
I would, yeah. So I think basically what I'm proposing is that we kind of recently made a decision that this needs to make sure we avoid the risk of the sewer plant, the danger of somebody coming and dumping somebody without anything. So I think that's clear that we need to stop that. I do think that it's fairly inexpensive to just lock it. We put a lock on it, put an eco block on it, something that keeps people from using it, and then allows us some time to have some discourse with the staff and maybe with the community. There's people that have used this for years, and I think we while it might not be as big of a deal as the Ryan House, I think allowing people to express their views and see if there's a way to use it that would benefit the community, I think is worthwhile. So I think this amendment essentially would just very inexpensively allow us to prevent the immediate risks and allow the community and the city to see if there's any options. I don't know that I'm optimistic that there are without a lot of cost, but I think the idea of delaying a permanent decision is prudent, so.
Any comments from the public on this? Seeing none. Any comments from the council? Councilmember Stewart.
Councilmember Elfers, I'm a little confused about your last sentence, which looks like it's the amendment. Further direct staff to explore options to operate the receiving station on a controlled and limited basis. So you've already said the proposed resolution includes closing it down on April 30th. And then what you're wanting to do is explore options to keep it open on a limited basis. Can you explain what that means?
I just want to leave it open to say, hey, we could spend $15,000 and close it, and you can't go back and undo that. But if you just spend $500 and temporarily close it and see if there's any other ways we can use it, it's worth a little bit of time to evaluate that between the community and the staff. I think that just giving some time would be reasonable.
Okay, I'm sorry, I still don't completely understand. You and I spoke offline, and I got the impression that you were hoping to keep it open over holiday weekends in the summer. Is that part of this?
I don't have any specific things, though. That was one thing that was mentioned. I think this came to us, we had a short discussion at the study session last week. And so I think it's just new enough that I don't know what other cities have done. I don't know, we talked about possibly charging, some places charge fees. The cost is kind of an estimate. We haven't really evaluated the cost. The cost is based on a full-time person doing it in a full-time thing. I think there is other options. Usually I think there's 3 or 4 solutions, and we've only looked at really one option. So I think the idea of saying maybe, I just don't know what the other options are. I feel like there's just not enough information to make a permanent decision, and it doesn't cost any money. It just costs a little bit of time to slow down.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Yes. Councilmember Bowman. Thank you.
So basically, the closure is based on compliance, a compliance issue. So if somebody dumps something in that tank, the way I understand it, it flows directly into our wastewater treatment plant.
Correct. There is no tank, actually. It is.
So it just goes straight in.
So it just goes straight in.
So is there a way in which you can test what's being dumped before it gets dumped in?
At this time, no.
All right. So if it gets dumped in and if we have to recharge that entire wastewater treatment plant, which services the city of Sumner and the city of Bonnie Lake, is there an approximate cost that it would cost this community to recharge that wastewater treatment facility?
I don't have that cost right now. I can tell you that some of the work that would be entailed to do that would be extensive. And in the meantime, we're probably having to discharge untreated wastewater to the river because there is no place where you could send that wastewater to be stored or stop it from going out, it still has to move through. We're still also receiving waste from two communities. So the work that is entailed there would be extensive.
Are there fines associated with that wastewater going into the river that could be imposed on us?
Potentially,
Okay,
absolutely.
thank you.
Anybody else? Oh, Councilmember.
Yes, I was just curious as to whether or not staff had really explored any other options to operate this receiving station.
Actually, no, not many other options. I mean, obviously, when we're having the discussions, we're talking about, I mean, is it feasible to have a current staff person go stand out there? That was quickly dismissed because right now staff is plenty busy with all of the tasks that they normally have on their day-to-day. This would be adding something in addition to their workload. And it was a little ambiguous as to when it would be open and would it be during the week or a weekend? And are we going to be paying overtime? And there's a lot of issues associated with that. It's also something that I don't know is currently included in a job description, so it may require negotiation with a bargaining unit. It's not as simple as just asking somebody to volunteer to go stand out there. And so many of those things that entailed, well, sending someone out there to do this were quickly dismissed because of a lot of those issues. The other thing, of course, too, is that even if we do find someone to stand out there, we still don't have some of the improvements necessary to ensure that our plant is safe. We do need to be able to have a place where there is temporary storage, the storage volume that I mentioned, a tank, where we can hold flows long enough to be able to test it and make sure there isn't something that's harmful to the plant process in there. So there are other circumstances that weigh into this that make keeping it open problematic.
Thank you for that. And then one last question. In 2023, how much did the city of Sumner spend on that pump, on that station?
Spend on the station?
What kind of expenses maybe, would have incurred, would have?
I don't know that it was for 2023. I think it was the year prior, but I believe staff, and I apologize, this is going back to some history prior to when I got here. But I believe that the cost that was determined based on the amount of loading that came in through the RV station, that it was approximately $75,000. I believe that it was estimated there was about 850,000 gallons of waste that was disposed through the RV station that year.
Okay, great, thank you.
I have one more
Councilmember
thing.
Bowman?
Sorry.
So is it feasible for a minimal cost to just lock it down so people can't come in and just dump, as Councilman Elfers is suggesting?
So I don't know exactly what the cost would be, but I believe in order to secure it, you're going to have to fence it. You're going to have to lock the discharge port. You're going to have to be able to secure it in a way that there's absolutely no access. And we know that that will be an effort that has to be repeated because I can guarantee you at some point, somebody will vandalize it, crack a lock open. This is not something that is uncommon to see happen. I would still feel fairly confident, knowing what we've had to pay for some fencing at different locations, that $15,000 number, somewhere between 5 and 15, depending upon what it is we do, it's fairly realistic.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Councilmember Potato.
So how much was the cost to put in a tank? Wasn't it pretty high?
So the 1.5 million that we estimated was based on installing the tank plus those other things that I mentioned. And many of those things work in concert together. So if we put in a tank, we're going to want to make sure that we have the grit removal in there. We want to make sure we can sample from it. So it kind of all comes together. Just putting in the tank, it would probably not be the recommended approach. We would probably want to put in the support systems necessary to ensure that what we're getting dumped in there is okay.
Okay, so that helps me with the decision.
Councilmember Stewart, did you have something?
Thank you, Mayor. I realize that you're fairly new and probably may not have a lot of statistics from prior years. Do you have numbers that show, first of all, how many RVs use that facility, say in a typical month?
Sure. So I was just talking to the plant superintendent today, and I believe he said it was a number of 4 years, 3 or 4 years ago, something in that time frame, that they actually did a count by reviewing camera footage from the security cameras that are installed around there, just to count the number of vehicles. And on a typical weekend, they were counting upwards of 70 vehicles. And some of that varies depending on, Memorial Day weekend, you're gonna see a lot more versus just some weekend in, I don't know, August or something. But weekends, 70 vehicles during the week, for the week, 20 to 30 vehicles, roughly.
Okay, thank you. And you probably don't have an idea of how many users of that service are Sumner residents versus not?
I don't know.
Okay, the reason I ask is it's very interesting that the council received 2 emails just recently. One speaking in favor of this, who happens to be a Sumner resident. One speaking against it, who happens to be a resident of the city of Boarding. So, 50% for, 50% against, according to the public. Thank you.
All right, anybody else before we move on? All right, so we will now vote on the amendment, Councilmember Elfer's amendment. Michelle, would you like to call the roll for that? We can't hear you. Cole?
Councilmember Cole,
No.
Councilmember Clargat,
No.
Brown,
Yes.
Shadow,
No.
Alpers,
Yes.
Stewart,
No.
Bowman.
No.
All right, it fails 5-2. So now we will vote on the resolution number 1676 as it was written. Michelle, would you like to call the roll for that?
Bowman,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Shadow,
Yes.
Stewart,
Yes.
Alpers,
No.
Brown,
Yes.
Clargat.
Yes.
Passes 6-1. All right. Thank you. Okay, reports. City Administrator is not here. Oh, Mr. Wilson, he is here. He's online.
Thank you, Mayor. Do you want to start with council?
Sure, I can do that. Councilmember Brown, do you have any comments? Oh, okay, I'll move on and come back to you. Councilmember Boteto.
I'd like to welcome Councilmember Cleargut. We're happy that you're on the council. I think it'll be a great addition. And then for the Planning Commission, we appreciate your time that you devote to the city. And I understand all your passion about the Ryan House, and thank you for your comments.
Councilmember Stewart.
Thank you, Mayor. She took my notes. Hey, ditto.
Shame on her.
Thank you.
Councilmember Cole.
I'm gonna say ditto too and add one more item. And that is as a user, as a commuter through Sumner Station, I feel like things are really going well. And I don't see people like overwhelmed or the parking overwhelmed or anything. So I feel really good about what the city has done, what Sound Transit has done, and I just feel like it's moving on in a really good way, even though it just started. That's it. Thank you.
Councilmember Elfers.
Welcome, Councilmember Claggett. Looking forward to working with you.
I would just say, welcome. I think you're gonna, Councilmember Clargat, this is gonna be fun. We have him stuck in a corner, so he can't get out very quickly, so we can help him with that. Andy, thanks for taking on the amendment. I think that there was a lot of thought that you put into that, and I think there was an underlying theme in there that you really wanted to give it time to get input from people, so I valued that, all right? And then I would say thank you to everybody that came to speak tonight, and thank you, Nick Bierman, for putting in the effort to go out and look for money, right? To really take some action for what you believe in. So I think that's very valuable. All right, so thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Clerget.
Yeah, I would just like to thank the council for giving me this opportunity to serve. So,
There
Thank
you
you.
go. Very good. Councilmember Brown.
Thank you, everyone who came to speak at public comment tonight.
Yes, and thank you for everybody who shows up and listens and talks, and we hear you. Sometimes it goes people's way and sometimes it doesn't. I don't know how this will end up, but thank you for your input. And I think we're gonna follow
City
on
administrator.
Jason now.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Sorry, I couldn't be there in person tonight dealing with some illness in our household. Starting next week on March 11th for the study session, Gretchen Casarati, the Pierce County Library Executive Director, will be present to talk about the library capital facilities area and where they're at with planning the new library. We'll then discuss a first quarter budget amendment and then the transportation improvement program and the transportation improvement fees. At our regular council meeting on March 18th, we're going to be going through the process of selecting council committees. Normally this is done at the beginning of the year, but council asked to delay that until we could get the Councilmember Hochstetter's replacement sworn in. And now that Councilmember Clerget is here, we'll go ahead and get those council committees assigned for the next 2 years. You'll be asked to accept a grant for floodplains by design. We'll hold a public hearing on the 6-year transportation improvement program. Consider an ordinance amending our Cultural Arts Code Commission and an ordinance adopting the first quarter budget amendment. On the development front, Development Services is seeing an increase in permit submittals ahead of the new energy building code changes that go into effect in mid-March. 2 weeks ago, the Design Commission reviewed 3 significant projects, including the Bennett property downtown, which is where the fire occurred, a new Brank's barbecue location along 24th Street East, as well as a mixed-use development at the corner of Graham and Main Street. Following up on some policy action from the council regarding utility shutoffs. So last summer, council voted to increase the past due utility account reconnection fee from $40 to $75. This adjustment was not done to increase city revenues, but to change customer behavior, and I'm happy to say that it is working. By increasing the penalty, it has caused people to take notice of the due dates and get their payments in on time, or reach out to us prior to shutoffs to establish payment arrangements. Since the change, we are disconnecting on average over 30% less accounts each month, and this month had our lowest number ever of just 21 residential disconnects. And that represents 0.05% of our total customers. And this is significant because the amount of time that we spend on shutoffs and reconnections is significant. It takes staff time away from fixing other things that are important in the city, like potholes and flushing sewer lines and water lines. So any staff time we can gain is valuable to us. On the legislative front, Initiative 2113, Mayor Hayden and Chief Markey signed in as pro at the Senate Law and Justice Committee, which held a joint hearing for Initiative 2113. That initiative would return the police pursuit laws back to pre-legislative action that they took in 2021. I'm pleased to say that earlier today, the state legislature approved Initiative 2113, which will go into effect 90 days after the session ends. And our police department will be ready with policy that meets state law and that actually was compliant with reasonable pursuit standards well before the legislature started making changes in 2021. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Cool. All right, you're off the hook. I will adjourn this meeting at 7:09.